We're back. We're alive. We know you missed us. Welcome, everybody, to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here, always, is Brit. How are you, Brit?
I'm good. I'm just the usual, tired, run around like crazy, but I don't know what I'd do if I ever slowed down, so I don't. How are you?
There you go. I slowed down big time. I am the definition of someone who let themselves go.
I know. I was thinking about the podcast and I was like, God,
so let's go ahead. It feels like almost 2 years or something since we've done this, but we just missed 1 week and all of a sudden people start wondering where you went. It's creepy.
Yeah.
But that's what you get when you're so loved,
all of our adoring.
Let's go ahead and that's right. First, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network wherever you get your podcasts so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can also follow us individually at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter and Instagram, and the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook. So there was a lot of stuff that had come out as far as Avalanche news, and I know the biggest one, I guess might as well hit that while we're at it, is the news of Gabe Landeskog. He had cartilage transplant, and he will not be playing for the 2023-2024 season.
Sorry, we kind of have a delay. I'm trying to hold off here. So like, do you transplant
don't worry
it
about
from
it. We're good.
Your own other knee, or because they say that basically there's a hole in the cartilage of his knee? So do you get it from or is he just gonna have like some super cow cartilage, or like where exactly does it?
I would assume they bring it from somewhere that has cartilage. Like, I don't know, like the nose, because and that's the thing is I don't know how much cartilage was transplanted, right? So it's like
is cartilage
on the body, I guess.
Like petri dish, and then
you can grow it on a farm.
Oh my God. As I say, I will gladly donate some cartilage. I would sacrifice.
If it means he plays if he means he plays sooner than later, I would absolutely donate. Yep.
Yeah, it's a gnarly recovery. It's 8 to 12 months, and it's not like Jack Eichel neck surgery controversial, but it is controversial. Who's the name of? There's an NBA player that had it, right, in Denver.
Lonzo Ball. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So in Methot, is that his name? He came out, Methot. He came out and that's what he had, and it wasn't super successful. So it sounds like the success rate is like 85%. But it is questionable when it comes to professional athletes. It's not something that has a lot of testing with higher athletes. So it's kind of cool. It'll be cooler if it's successful. It'll be less cool if it's not.
Oh yeah.
That it's kind of groundbreaking or whatever. It's setting a new precedent for like if this is something that's an option. You know how Eichel's been super successful with his, and now it's like that can be a part of our, put that in our tool bag for surgeries that they're willing to do. But this could be something that they can now integrate, for professional athletes if it is successful. Just a little more data to have on hand with a sample size.
Yep. I totally agree, because with this, I mean, it opens up a whole new can of worms, because that's the hard part is there were two options the doctors had suggested initially so I guess let's jump back for a second here. The initial injury that he sustained was actually from the bubble on 2020 during the COVID years, and he played through it. He got some operations done, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
ultimately
I think
wins the cup last season. Surgery, they said, because they said it could take him. I guess they gave him two options at the beginning of last off season, saying we could do this surgery and we think it'll be okay.
About it in September.
Hey, we don't know what the recovery could be. Surgery that he just got over the last week. So they thought it could be tried to shave off some time, but it ended up dulling it now, and it's it's an unfortunate thing because that's our captain. That's the guy that kind of is the glue of the team, and you can definitely tell that you missed him this year.
And I think it's maddening also because from what I understand, he has no issues walking. His mobility off the ice is perfectly fine. It's just when he goes to skate hard that he has those issues. So he's got a quality of life off the ice right now, but that's not the life that he wants right now. So it's I'm sure it's maddening for him to feel fine until you just do what you want to do. That's the only thing that basically is being inhibited in his life is his career, his livelihood. So I don't know. It's frustrating, especially when people are so dense that they're like, he looks like he's okay when they see him like standing there holding a sign. It's like, well, yeah, holding a sign and then having to go out and skate on the ice with professional NHL players take slightly different tolls on the body and require different things.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you play like he does. I mean, he's a grinder.
He's the guy that's right in front of the net. He'll do the tip shots. He's the one who kind of bodies people off of the net.
Yep.
Screens, whatever it is. So team is the guy that he'll do the beating and banging while everyone else tries to set up shop on the perimeter. So I mean, again, it's pretty disheartening, to be honest with you, but it opens up a whole new question of absolutely, he's guaranteed done for the season, right? So they haven't even like gone 3 days and they said, hey, by the way, don't even expect him to come back next season. They just, rip the Band-Aid off as early as possible.
I'm thankful for that because if we had gone into even like the draft with that uncertainty, it would have been really stressful because there's a good chance that we need to trade that first round draft pick that we have to assess that situation because we have we will have his pay on LTIR, which is what, 7 or 8.
7 a year. Yep.
But the thing is most people that are making 8 aren't signing as free agents for 1 year because we don't have that 7. We can't sign long-term contracts for a superstar. So most of those people that are going to get paid 8, that's where you get you do that kind of stuff at the trade deadline, but we're looking to fix that sooner. So it's going to be something where we might need to get somebody with a little bit of term, and we might have to utilize that first round draft pick that we have before the draft. Because honestly, at this point, I'm starting to feel that teams are taking this transition to where some really just don't, depending on where your association is, the Avs aren't at a point where draft picks really mean anything to them. We are.
When was the last time we had a first round draft pick?
18? Would it have been Cout?
A long time ago.
Or Jost, Newhook? But it was
a while ago.
We trade those draft picks for fresh and ready bodies, and it's worked well for us. And that's kind of a template that Tampa, I think, laid out. I don't think Tampa's drafted almost any of their players. The fact that we drafted McKinnon and Makar is beautiful, but in this cup window, draft picks don't do us any good, really. Especially if we're going to keep knocking it out of the park on our college signings, our college free agent signings.
Yep, absolutely. And so, and this is a question that Avatar has. For those of you wondering, as far as how come he was able to do stuff off the ice but not on the ice, Avatar says you have to use different muscles on the ice that you don't always have to use off the ice. And he corrected himself here. That says he meant to say don't instead of do. And he's asking Brit if this is correct. And I'll answer it first, but short and sweet, the answer is yes. It's about what is and isn't used off the ice. That he's able to exercise off the ice and kind of jump around with a sign, versus you're putting hard pressure constantly for 3 hours.
The strenuous use of those muscles is so much different, but there's a reason that hockey has such a specialized training regimen for premier athletes is because you utilize muscles that take very specific movements to replicate ice skating and different hockey moves. They're not muscles that you use in everyday motions and movements. And that's what he said, that he straight up said, I have no pain off the ice. It's just when I get on the ice and skate. So, and unfortunately, to be a good NHL player, you do have to be able to skate, from what I hear.
Yep, that is absolutely true. And if I'm not mistaken, this year, kind of like what we were alluding to talking about draft picks, is we have a first round this year, next year,
Yep.
and 2025.
Yeah, which we got ours. It got bumped lower. I don't know if was it because we ended up at like 26th or 27th, I think is what it is. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's
we're lower on the food chain, but I mean, still to have a first round pick in your pocket to use for trading purposes, or maybe you do use it because you're at a point now where you have a lot of free agents coming up, and you maybe want to sign some or let some go. So maybe you do want to bring a fresh pair of legs on. There's, it's who knows what the Avalanche are thinking, because for a lot of teams, first round picks are not very easy to come by, and they want them. So
right,
what
especially
they end up
as many
doing,
teams that just tanked, that just did. Those
Mhm.
teams need those first round draft. The people that are
Yeah.
building now from the ground up. When you've got an established team and your window is open, I think the trade value is beyond the value of getting a first round draft pick, when
Mhm.
you have to consider beyond the top 3, and even within the top 3, so many of those end up being a failure. I mean, we're judging these kids. I mean, we start labeling them when they're like 13 and 14. These USHL kids are getting drafted when they're like 16. And so it's such a crapshoot. So I personally like the idea of, when you've got that good draft pick, you take the gimmies. But otherwise, I'm not opposed at all to consistently trading them for proven or even reclamation projects.
Yep. And that's just it, is kind of like what you alluded to, was that has kind of been the Avalanche way for the last 5 years. And clearly from last year, it's been working, because the Avalanche are on a 6-year playoff streak. They've made the playoffs the last 6 years. So do they keep it? Honestly, I don't care if they do or don't, because you have $7 million of Landeskog's money, but mind you, it's only for this season that is confirmed,
Right.
that you have to shop around with. So a lot of that is going to be maybe to signing and retaining people like your restricted free agents. So like Bo Byram, Alex
A lot of
Newhook,
people.
Dennis Malgin,
B-Rod.
the kids, yeah. So maybe that's kind of what half of it is. But then the other question is, who's going to fill that slot for at least 1 year? Because it's hard to get just a 1 year rental and be like, hey, we love you, we want to bring you in, but sign this 1 year deal first, and then we'll give you long term,
Right. For us during free agency. And that's where the
Mhm.
trade deadline comes in. That's where you can pick up and utilize that. But we need to solve the problem sooner than that. Best case
Yep.
scenario, and we'll see where we go with this, is you pick up somebody who's maybe had a couple of struggle years that needs that could get picked up a little bit cheaper, but we can afford to pay them decently, and pray that they have that year for their comeback that affords them the eyes to sign to a better contract next year once they've proven themselves. And that's pretty much the best case. That's one of the better case scenarios with that.
Yes. So there have been, I guess, swirls and rumors of who might fill that role. And I've seen everything from Elias Lindholm to Evgeny Kuznetsov and players like that, which I wouldn't exactly be upset with. But the question is, you have to remember it's only for the year. And as much as I would love to sign someone like one of those two guys to a long-term contract or whatever, I'm thinking you play it kind of more of the way of Patrick Kane. And I'll explain why. Patrick Kane is 34 years old, right? He's been around the block. He has won cups. He still has a lot of oomph left in him. He was a 10.5 cap hit this last season. He's not going to get anywhere near that amount of money now with his age, because that was his big contract now that he's cashed out on. Exactly. And based off that playoff performance, what's that?
Is Allie in here today? I was gonna gauge how hot or cold. How are Rangers
She
feeling
was
about him?
not thrilled with how Patrick Kane played.
I know, I sat there and I'm like, well, I'm glad we didn't sell the farm for this guy. Like,
There you go. Well, so she's up in northern Utah with her parents for the week. So
okay.
I'm a bachelor out here back at the apartment. It's great stuff. But no, so she has constantly told me how disappointing Kane did in the postseason, because he showed some great flashes in the pan for a few number of games, but then just kind of disappeared, really in
And they haven't
the
released that he was
postseason.
hurt
So
or doing surgery?
not that I'm aware of, because usually after they're done, they all of a sudden say, "Oh, by the way, the reason they lost is because
Right.
so and so ended up
Okay.
having zero brain in his head." It's like, okay, well, dude, like, that's your fault for playing. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
for
what to
sure.
tell you. Anyways, so going back to Patrick Kane here,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way he gets even close to 10.5 million where he was like last year.
No.
You probably bring him, if you can, 4 or 5 million
Right.
for a 1-year deal. See how that goes.
Right.
That's
And that's
kind of what I'm thinking.
I agree. Those tenured vets that you can't sign them to long-term contracts, whether it be due to simply age, reliability, health, those kind of things. Those are the kind of guys that you can bet on, and you just have to pick who you're going to bet on.
Yep.
And he's definitely one of those. People are talking Jonathan Toews again.
Yep, I've heard Toews come out.
I don't know. I just feel like once you start talking retirement, like I don't think that he's already it's like, we want to bring somebody who's considering retirement for 2 years to a Stanley Cup team. I don't know. Ryan O'Reilly is another possible option.
Yep.
If we could get him to a somewhat longer contract, because the thing is, while we do only have that money for 1 year, we do also have a substantial cap raise coming, hopefully
this is true.
Following. So if we did sign someone to utilize Landy's LTIR this coming year, the following year we anticipated that cap raise. That might be a way that we could sign someone like Ryan O'Reilly to like a 4x6 or 7. I really don't know. He's like 32 or 33. The problem is he's not old, but he's not young. If he was our captain, like we gave Landy, we would bet on him for the long term, but no, we can't do that for the dude. But I would love a Ryan O'Reilly reunite. Like I would love it. I would love to get him long term if he was willing to do something team friendly, so to say. But yeah, it's a tough position, especially trying to do it during free agency.
Yeah, it is. And you heard Jared Bednar even say it after, I think it was a press conference or something like that, after they were taken down in Game 7 by Seattle, is he said the team will look different. I mean, plain and simple. And he's not talking about the fact that, Fanatics branded jerseys are coming in 2 years. He's talking about the fact that there is going to be new meat on the table, So that's kind of why I don't like being the real GM. I like playing armchair GM because I could kind of fantasize and say whatever I want that I think would work.
Right.
And speaking of, Avatar does have a question here. He says, I heard some Avs fans want Sakic to take back the GM capabilities. Does that sound crazy?
They're working in tandem, and they have been for years.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is they have been
hand in hand. It's not.
They are essentially the same person. They will always be talking to each other. There's no move that McFarland will make that Sakic doesn't know about or has his input in. But the same way how Sakic has been essentially having junior GM McFarland under his wing all this time.
Simply was a title change. They're making decisions the exact same way that they have been.
Yep.
And that's what people getting mad at McFarland. It's the process is still the exact same. McFarland just got the promotion and the raise that he deserved when he was essentially doing it before. They've been grooming him for this. And I don't think that people realize that McFarland is a highly, highly desired man within the league.
He is very sought after. Yes.
Or if we demoted him, he would be gone in a second. When you've got 32 pots, a lot of these, if Jeff Merrick wasn't obsessed with Gabe Landeskog, I don't know that Gabe Landeskog would even be discussed in national media podcasting. And they
Yep.
talk about Chris McFarland. Chris McFarland is a gem. He is and I know that it's easy to say we should have
He
done more,
is.
but we can talk more about that when we do kind of like our trade. We'll do like an armchair GM discussion probably next week in a Mod Podge one, but Chris McFarland is absolutely 100% not the problem.
Yeah, because and kind of like with what we just said, the only thing that changed in Sakic's mind was a title change. They are still almost doing the exact same stuff. The only difference is McFarland is now the guy plastered into the GM role. You know, it's so nothing has changed, and you could obviously tell with kind of the moves they made this offseason and grabbing Evan Rodriguez during the trade deadline, getting Lars Eller. You know, those are moves that I'm like, yeah, that. It's a Sakic McFarland move. The only difference is who's announcing it.
We're still making the same kind of moves. We're still bringing back our guys. We brought Jack Johnson back. I mean, that's a total Sakic move. We like our guys. We got Matt Nieto back. You know, this season was a whole lot of bad luck. Everything just didn't line up right, and that's from beginning to end, all of it. And that's not McFarland's fault.
Exactly. And since they do love bringing people back that used to play for the Avs. Chris and Joe, if you're listening to this, please bring back Tyson Barrie. That would make Nick Bixel very, very happy.
I
would love that more than anything.
I was honestly just so shocked that Edmonton traded him when he was one of their more valuable players throughout the year. It just usually you don't trade somebody that has a significant position and role on your team for a question mark. And I don't know. That was weird. I'm trying to think. Who did they trade him for? Eklund? Was that?
Ekholm went to Edmonton, and they sent back Tyson Barrie to Nashville.
Okay.
Which he seems to be enjoying, but I'm like, yeah, it's not home though. Home is Mile High City. You know,
can you imagine bringing Tyson Barrie back and Ryan O'Reilly?
I would pass out. I mean, if you bring that band back together, wow, that's bringing it out of retirement type stuff. But yeah, I would buy up every last piece of Tyson Barrie merch for the Avalanche that they release. I miss him so much, but it is what it is. You know, people move on, and I just don't, and that's okay. So going back onto this now, so we have a lot of more stuff to get to, but just one last piece on the whole Landeskog and offseason type deal is that 2C role. Is this kind of something that we're trying to just slot in for the 2C, or are we expecting the worst from Gabe Landeskog? Because that's the question. Is everybody is thinking he's done. He's going to call it a career. It's not going to work this season. Right. They're banking on, worst case scenario. Is it too soon to hit that panic button?
You know, the confidence, he was asked at any point, have you considered retiring? And he seemed to very confidently answer no. That's not, I mean, he's truly working to come back. And if there's anyone that's like the perfect balance of like being a real life guy and being a dedicated, strong-willed hockey player, I'd say it's him. If I was going to have faith in anyone, he would definitely be one of my people. I truly think that he will come back. And I think that he will give it his all. So we'll see. And I just can't say that I don't think we're ever going to see the Gabe Landeskog that we saw like in the playoffs last year, which is painful, but also like an 80% Landeskog is still pretty dang good hockey
still
player.
Take him.
Right. And then he's still our guy. Like that's our captain. And that's a force that, you know, we missed greatly. So yeah, I do think he'll come back, and I would imagine he'll be relatively successful. I would imagine his career will either be cut short or like he might only last another 4 to 5 years, or we will see him, you know, struggle to find what he had found last year.
Yep.
Especially because last year was such a good year for him.
Exactly. And that's kind of my thing is like, he won a cup. He did everything in his power to go and win a Stanley Cup, which he accomplished. Right. So I'm just going to take it honestly, one season at a time. That I think that's at least my approach that I'm going to be doing is don't
Right.
think of anything long term because we don't know exactly how he's going to come back, if
Well,
he's
and
going
that
to
might
come
be
back,
something
when,
to
that kind of
gauge
stuff.
when you see what we sign. That might give you an idea of how
Hmm.
confident they are in his long-term. If we
Exactly.
sign
Yeah.
somebody for 5 years, $6 million, that might be them saying, just in case our boy doesn't come back, or he's more of a third line center or just a second line permanent wing. That will probably give us a better idea of their true um, anticipation for what they'll get out of him when he does come back.
Yep.
I'm
Absolutely.
in
So
my mind. So I've always got my dramatic best case scenario, like lay in bed and dream about it, is that Gabe
there you
Landeskog
go.
is hurt and he's going to show up on the first game of playoff next year and he's going to come
He
in
re-
and just tear it up.
he recovers in 6 weeks and he's back by the start of the season and
Yeah.
everything's good.
We're gonna Kucherov it right through the playoffs. He's gonna be out all
There
year.
you
He's
go.
gonna come and score some big goals and captain's back. So that's
There
my
you
best
go. But
scenario.
that is the best case. And we don't even want to think about worst case because best case
No.
always happens to the Swedish men. Are we right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it hurts to think about him being gone forever. And people are quite concerned about the C. I would imagine they'll continue with 3 A's. I don't think a lot of people are aware that a lot of teams don't have captains and haven't for a long time. It's kind of weird. They stripped Wheeler of his captaincy, right? And I don't think that they put anyone else as captain. Did they? I don't think that but there's a lot of
I
teams
don't
that
think they have yet.
have
Nope.
no captain for years, a full year. So
Hmm.
it's not unusual. I don't think that we'll see McKinnon take the captaincy. I don't think that's a role he wants to take, and I don't think that it's one that he is a leader in his own do as I do. I don't think he's
Hmm.
looking to be that kind of leader. If anything, I would be curious to see if Makar down the road would be a captain should Gabe not come back. But I think for next year, they'll just roll with the 3 A's between Mac, Makar, and any rolling list of players that we've seen wear it this year.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Okay, so we have about halfway-ish through the episode, but right now we are going to do some season grades as our season's been done for a couple of weeks now. And in fact, Seattle is playing their game 7 against Dallas right now.
Oh, yeah.
They might be the last team in. We don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to 0-0 right now, but we'll have to see. Anyways, so been done for a little bit. We've had time to kind of mull it over, but we're still going to give our kind of from the hip grades for the team. So first things first, though, I do want to say we are not counting players who were traded away midseason who didn't have enough of a sample size, I guess. Like, so for example, like Oscar Olausen, right? Like played 1 game.
Irrelevant.
Jean-Luc Foudy played 9, so it's like, I'm not going to count them, but people of a higher relevance, I guess is what I'm going to say. Okay. So we'll start off with, let's see, how do I want to sort this? I'm going to sort this by plus minus. This should be fun. And we'll go this direction to kind of randomize it. Okay. Very first one, Sam Girard. What do you give him?
Oh, I'm going to throw out first, like, I struggle very deeply with these because in my mind, I'll convince myself like a whole grade up or down within like a 10-minute time frame. And I think that we have to consider like what have you done for me lately? So I really try to weigh heavily on considering their performance at the beginning of the year. When you consider the absolute like chaos that they had to endure at the beginning of the year. So I really tried to take that in deeply because that's where a lot of character shows through and a lot of like what can you do in the really tough times. So for Girard, I ended up going with a B minus, and I know that not probably the popular opinion. I struggled with a C plus or B minus. He's obviously had his struggles this year, but he's also really, really been just possibly one of our most stable players in their position through the entirety of the year, relatively healthy. And he was probably our most stable and consistent player through the playoffs. Also, he was just very steadfast. Did he stand out and score a hat trick in every game? No, but he really was just very reliable, and that's something that, especially as a goalie, valuing a reliable defenseman is bound to happen. So I'm going with a B-.
Very good. I felt just on the other side of the spectrum on that. I was also toying with the C plus B minus, and I ended up giving him a C plus. Again, it's I mean, 6 goals, 31 assists, right? Like, so as far as his production, yeah, he contributed in, every other, every third game, every fourth game, whatever it is.
Right.
His skating was fantastic, but he does that, he did have the worst plus minus, but not all that is his fault,
Right.
the only thing I wish
line that he was put on, he's definitely been the odd man.
So, and none of it, he kind of had all these bad numbers, but none of them are to his fault.
Right.
The only reason I bumped him down to the C plus area is because I wanted to see him take more, I guess, charge when he had the puck, because more often than not, he had a great shot lined up, and he would just pass it away. So kind of just taking the reins a little bit more, because he's right at the point where he's not, because we've seen we've seen his ceiling, we've seen what he's able to do,
right?
And for him to not quite hit that type of a potential, it did bump me down into that C plus area. But at the same time, I'm like, if he stays around for this next season, I'm happy. I'm more than happy for him to stay on. So let's move on to the next guy then. So there was Samuel Girard. Let's see. You didn't play enough games. You got traded away. Ben Myers. 39 games, 4 goals, 0 assists. What do you give me?
It's I am going with a C minus. I feel like he had a really big opportunity that he kind of failed to capitalize on, but I also feel like we probably expected more out of him than we should. He's definitely kind of an anomaly when you think of like rookies and stuff, because he is mid-20s, 24, mid-25, something like that. So he's not like a fresh rookie. He's a tenured college vet who's experienced success, but it's not the NHL. It was disappointing to see him not capitalize on those. We have seen some moments of greatness, but he definitely lacked any like shining moments with consistency that would make him a certain staple on the team. So yeah, I think you got about the lower end of what you what you deserve to expect out of him, but certainly not what we had desperately hoped for from him.
Yeah. And my expectations for him were, I mean, they weren't like anywhere remotely like Cale Makar or, Nathan McKinnon, anything like that. But I just said, if you could just continually play solid, and solid for me was make no mistakes on one end, but also help with the production on the other. And that to me is a solid performance where you're not hurting the team and you are contributing in a way. But he kind of just laid mellow the entire time. So I agree with you where I would give him a C minus. He did enough to pass the exam, but you wish he did more, So
he wasn't a liability all the time, but he definitely you could replace him with a lot of players that exist within the NHL. He is not established to be a mainstay NHL player, which maybe next year we'll see. He might have to.
There you go. Okay, next guy. Let's see. Not enough games. You got traded. Not enough games. You got traded. Curtis McDermott. The old town and country. The big guy. What do you got?
I tried to rate like relative to what we're paying them for, and I guess for him, I'm going to C minus 2. I felt like last year we saw some really big strides in his skating, his mindfulness to the game, and This year we didn't see those, but he's also got a ceiling. He's got a far lower ceiling. There's only so much an old grinder can learn. So we may be seeing that ceiling in skating. But the games that he was out, I feel like his biggest detriment were ill-timed penalties that didn't progress the game or establish a tone. Just going out there and just cross-checking somebody from behind and then taking a 2-minute penalty is not like get the boys going stuff. And I get the time and place still for having that kind of enforcer type, but like a cross-check that's not it for me. Hooking because you can't skate fast enough, that's not it. And it also didn't help that we put him back and forth from offense to defense, and he's just not really great at either. So the poor guy's got no consistency at all. But yeah, I think a C- even for his for what we expect and what we pay him for. He needs to make better choices in those penalties.
Yep. I'm right there with you. A C-. He could have been a C with if he didn't have those boneheaded penalties, and that's kind of the one thing. I think he had the most penalty minutes out of everyone there, for even having very limited time on ice.
Ice time this season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points in 44 games. So, and that number could have been like 5 goals had Andrew Cogliano not stole every last one of those.
Did. I think Cogs took
he took so many,
and then he had 1 called off. Yeah, Cogs is just the goal stealer. That's what he does.
That's exactly right. Yep. So back to McDermott here is, I think my favorite thing about him is he is that enforcer that he doesn't, he makes those dumb penalties, yes, but at the same time, if he's on the ice, everyone's on their best behavior,
Right. And that's what
he kind of has that I guess atmosphere about him is people tend to not want to pick fights with him because he's the goon of the team. He's the guy that he doesn't take any crap from anyone, and he'll sock you right in the mouth for it.
Right. And that's a fading role within the NHL. But I was listening to an interview a while back, and it was interesting that I can't remember who it was, but he was talking about he was a smaller player, and he struggled to really emerge because he got a concussion earlier in the year, as in his rookie year. And that I just remember him talking about like once he had this enforcer, I feel like it was like Probert that he was playing with or something. And he said that everybody was able to stand taller on the ice while he was out there. And that's just something that, and then did you hear the Steve Dangle interview too? Steve Dangle was talking about it. He said that I can't remember, it was some, he had an NHL player on his team that could basically like take anyone out. And that he's like, I totally understood the role of the enforcer because you can skate taller, stand higher, and think you can play the game with a lot less fear. And he said it just kind of put it into perspective. So while I think it is a limited position, I think it is still valuable. But I think you have to have some talent also. The league is too fast for guys that are only enforcers, and McDermott might be aging out of that ability soon.
Yep. And keep in mind though, with every year that he has been on the Avalanche, he has gotten better with his skating ability, puck handling ability. So it has transformed him. But at the same time, he has a role that he needs to fill, and if he can fill that nicely, awesome. He's got another year on his contract. They signed him to 2-year last season or last off season. So he's got 1 more year to. Like a veteran, like a bare minimum, I think. Let me see if I can pull that up.
It might be league min. That's what I.
Yeah, just a shade under $1 million a year. So it's like it's a project, but it's kind of a fun project to have because you love the guy. Whenever he shoots the puck, you hope it goes in. Right.
And with him being able to play forward in defense, well, not great. I do not like it, but that is that's very valuable, and that was it's always going to be something valuable in the NHL because there's some people that most people simply are not serviceable in other positions. Other than Brad Hunt getting his 35 seconds of forward play during the last game of the season. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, no kidding. Wasn't that beautiful? That was a weird thing.
Imagine Bednar's just like,
and then he never played the rest of the game.
Brad's
He's
like,
like, I'll do it. And he's like, okay, you've done your shift. Get back out.
yeah, it's so funny.
All righty. Moving on. Let's see. Not enough games, but we will come back to him. I don't even think he really played any games. Okay. Alex Newhook is the next
Yeah,
guy.
that's $1 million
All righty.
question. You first.
What do you give him? Oh,
No,
boy.
you're first.
I give him a C+, because he had a lot of potential. He had so many moments where he was in that B+ range, but just a lot of stuff he kind of mishandled, and it wasn't, you kind of got no one to blame but yourself. And it's too bad because he's got all kinds of this star-studded
Yes.
potential, like, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Now, his stats are great. 82 games played. Didn't miss a game, even though he took like 38 pucks to the face. 14 goals, 16 assists for 30 points. It's not like, I mean, he contributed, but with his skill set, he could have done so much more. So the 2C role was given to him. Unfortunately, he didn't play like he wanted it. So let it be known, I want to keep the guy, because I think if he finally finds himself for real, these goals, he's got 30 goals, no problem.
Right.
He's got that type of a potential.
Yep, and that's what I with a C+ too. I don't know how we are lining up. We'll see where we start disagreeing here. But I went with a C+ also. I think that it's unfortunate that he didn't capture that moment and take that 2C, but it's also unfortunate that we're in a position to force that on him, because if he were given this is what, his second year in the NHL, if he were afforded the opportunity to develop like at a normal pace, I feel like we will end up seeing him become, a top 6 forward, be it with us or someone else. Should we trade him off? And I've often wondered, might that be better for him, where he can go develop in a normal way, not being pushed to be the team's 2C for a Stanley Cup run immediately. You can definitely tell that there's some mental stuff there. He was gripping the stick hard all year. The guy's got a good shot, and he refused to shoot. And you got to wonder, if we traded him off, could he go develop somewhere in a way that's not so strenuous, and you ultimately see him becoming a solid second liner, because he's got it. He's definitely got it. But it does suck that he couldn't, because, some of those guys thrive. You got guys like Binnington, guys that take those opportunities and just absolutely own them. And I wish he could have done that this year, because, it may have changed. When you consider everything else, it wouldn't have changed a whole lot. But it's a shame. And I hope we keep him. When you consider his stats, the way people tear him apart, his grade can't be relative. You can't weigh that against what we hoped from him, when it was kind of an unrealistic, like a possible outcome. So I think that he deserves a lot more credit for a guy that we're paying $900,000 that just turned 21 like last year.
Exactly. He's got a lot of time ahead of him.
He's a baby. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, on to the next. Let's see. Not enough games. You were traded. Not enough games. All right, here we go. Brad Hunt.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take this one first, or do you want to go?
Oh, I can go. I give him a B+. I just, for what you consider what he is, we brought him up. He stood out in the moment. The guy seems like an absolute pleasure to know. His smile, while it is jaggedy, it's the sweetest, most genuine smile I've ever seen. He looks like he's having a good time. He scored a couple big goals. He took some big shots. The guy's got a slap shot that I would 100% move out of the way of. But
oh, absolutely.
Very, very stable. I mean, it never hurt to see him moving up in the lineup when we had to call him up from Colorado. And he also had a phenomenal year with the Eagles, made the All-Star team. He just stable. And that's not something that we had a lot of this year. So you got to appreciate it.
I think with him coming into the fray with the Avalanche squad and doing what he did, I mean, I can definitely see where your B+ comes from. I gave him a B-, and the only reason why is because there were just a couple of times where he just kind of made more lousy passes. But you have to remember, given the fact that he came onto the team. He wasn't just a
Right.
shoe-in, right? You can't be more proud of the guy. I mean, I'd give him an A+ for just coming up and surprising me, like great
Right.
stuff. But my expectation for him quickly went, okay, he has proven that he is here to play. Like he's not
Right.
so after my expectation jumped, that's kind of where it went from like, dude surprised me, A+, awesome stuff, to kind of being graded almost to that same level of
Right. We were one injury
your
away from him being a
Nichushkins,
mainstay
your
in the bottom 6.
exactly, right? So that's where my grading came from. I grade them almost to the same level of your Nichushkins, your Lekkonens, that kind of
Right.
stuff, because
Yeah.
he had the ability to play in that type of a manner. So B- for him, but it's a good B-. That's not a bad thing, right? Because my grading curve jumped up when I saw
Yeah.
his type of production. Very
Mhm.
surprising. I'd be more than happy for him to jump back on the team next year. But yeah, overall, I was very happy with his
Mhm.
production on the ice. All right, next guy is Lars Eller, the newest kid on the block. You want me to take this? I'll go first if you want.
Okay.
I gave him a B- as well. Not a lot was expected of him. And most of what he did was kind of just be that body that, in scrums and stuff to muscle people off, get the
Mhm.
puck, stuff like that. But I also know what he did on Washington, which was a little bit more than what he did for Colorado. Now his role could be different, but it's
Mhm.
just based off what I saw on his previous team and how he handled that. Now, age is a factor. I understand that. So you could bump him up to a B, but I give him a B- just because I would love to see him do just a bit more with his stick work when he has the puck, because he's good to get the puck away from other people, but
Mhm.
keeping it and having that kind of a control was a
Right.
little bit more lackluster. But overall, I think he was a fantastic addition to the team,
Yeah.
and he did a great job.
Yeah, it's definitely I feel like if you could like describe his style, like the game around him is like chaos. It's always just
Hmm.
chaos. Like and I would go with a B minus also. I think that for the most part, he pretty much came in and people were really upset about this trade and I was open to it. It wasn't supposed to be a blockbuster. It was a little filler, fill this little role. He was a face-off guy. I was trying to look
Hmm.
and see if I could figure out what his face-off stats ended up being, but it seemed like he generally did well in the face-offs. But he found ways to contribute in other ways, and that's why I just
Hmm.
think he pretty much did what you expected out of him. I'm curious to see if we'll keep him. I would like to keep him if we can get him cheap. I wouldn't be willing to spend a ton of money on him, but I don't think many other teams will because he's kind of a niche player, but
Hmm.
also kind of one of those ragtag guys that finds a spot on a team and you fall in love with them and they stay. And we'll see. But yeah, I think he just kind of did exactly what they expected him to. He wasn't going to come in and score goals. He did just fine. He
Yep,
just did have a habit of just disappearing, like
he
half the
did.
rest of
Yep.
the team.
Yep. Okay, next guy, Dennis Malgin, the Swiss Miss himself. Uh, I'll go ahead and go first. I give him a B+
Mhm.
because I loved how surprised I was with him. He was kind of like the Brad Hunt times 10,
Right.
One of the best trades that we did.
Right,
We
it's like
gave
trading from a piece of gum up to a Camaro. I mean, when you
It
consider.
really was.
Yep.
Like 11 goals, 6 assists, and mind you, that was only in effectively half a season. Imagine what he could have done a whole
Yeah.
season. So B+, I have just been tickled pink that he was on the team. He had all these flashes of greatness. Like if he continues to develop that type of a game, he's
Right.
he's on that tier of, you know, I don't
Right.
want to necessarily say McKinnon or anything like that, but he's
No, but it's
got
gotta
that
learn to
type
finish.
of greatness in him where you could kind of be a miniature star of the team for like Nichushkin, Lekkonen, that kind of a tier. So B+ for me.
Yeah, and that's what I've got him at a B. It was a very pleasant surprise, especially when Toronto's like, "Huh, enjoy," and then
Okay.
they ended up waking what's his face. Was it Dryden Hunt that they got? Like 20
Hmm.
minutes later, I think he had a quick goal with them, and then just like fizzled out
Yeah.
immediately. I think that, and I don't even know how old Malgin is. I think he's pretty young though, and I think he's just a decent long-term project that you could keep around and you can't expect a high number of goals in a season, but you can anticipate flashes, and it was just a very pleasant surprise, and I think he's certainly someone worth keeping around, especially because he's not getting paid a ton. And that was just that's one of those great trades, and it might not even be the trade itself. There's something about some dudes just click better with some coaches, and he seems to work with our system better. Sometimes you go somewhere else and you find your groove and you find a system that works with you and teammates that get you feeling right. So, he might be destined to be on the Avalanche, and I'd certainly like to keep him around. I don't think we'll have to pay him a ton. We'll see. But yeah, I liked him. I love that. Loved having him.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said. Andrew Cogliano is next on the slate. Why don't you go first?
I feel like when you break your neck, like you should automatically get like brownie points.
No kidding.
But up until like the pity points, Cog's probably for the year in its entirety, I've got him at like a C-. He's got a distinct role on the team. He's a leader. He is a voice in the locker room. He's a player who drives hard in the corners, and he's fearless, and people see him and want to emanate that drive. And this year he came out and just got a shit ton of really stupid penalties, and he lost his mind too many times. And I feel like that's exactly the opposite of what we needed from him in a lot of those times. He definitely got some goals. It's hard to know which one of those actually touched his stick or whether they just touched his butt or his glove. The guy is a menace in front of the net. He steals so many goals. It's unreal. But I have a unending amount of respect for the way that the guy plays. It takes a brave and hardworking person to, be that guy that hits the corners and digs out of the corners, because that's scary. I mean, I think that's safe to say, like, a lot of those guys don't go get that stuff, because you will get hit hard a lot. And I do hope that we see him back next year. I'm curious, if I was his wife, I would force him to retire, like I've said.
Oh, no kidding.
My husband just lit a firework out back. I don't know.
I thought you had a parakeet.
I think did you hear that? Yeah, I think they're.
I heard it sounded like a squawk almost.
We raked all of our crap up, so I think they're firing it, all the dead grass. So they're probably.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That should be fun. I gave him a B-. And the big reason is because his persona more than anything. And I totally agree with, he had the dumbest penalties. He robbed everybody else's goals, whatever. But the guy was he was unbreakable. Even with a broken neck, he came and played the rest of the game.
A literal broken neck.
Which you don't like, that should have paralyzed him. Like it could have, I guess I should have said. So just off that alone, I bump up his grade to a B-. Now, that being said, if you take away the goals that weren't really supposed to be his, yeah, you're right down there in the C-, that right. kind of range. But for him to be able to just be there and at least redirect them to go into, and some of them were kind of game-changing goals. So for him to kind of clumsily be in the right place at the right time, I clumsily give him
those aren't accidents. These guys
exactly.
Accidentally, these guys who constantly tip and get hit by the puck, it's not an accident. It's a they're
there for a reason.
Talent. Yeah. Yep. And it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. After Andrew, we got one Evan Rodriguez.
My boy.
What do you get, Erod?
So I'm just giving him, I've got him down for a solid B, and I've gone back and forth for a B+ or B. I don't have a ton of gripes short of his ability to just completely disappear for moments. The thing is, when he's there, he's there. And he integrated with his team so fast and so well. And he seems he's eager to stay in Colorado. So that tells me that, something clicks right. He's vibing. And we just moved him up, moved him down, moved him. I mean, that guy, I don't think he played with the same two players for 2 games in a row. And to me, that's such a testament to their ability to be coached and to be willing to try anything. Really, the only negative that you can say is, he just disappears sometimes, and that was just kind of the tone of the season. But his shootout goals, some of the stuff that he pulls
those
is
moves.
he's got a patience with the puck that makes your stomach churn and some people complain about his not being willing to shoot, but then when you see what he puts together when he does practice that patience, it's beautiful. It's it's an art, and it's so nice to watch. I really, really enjoy him, and I honestly prioritize him over most of our UFAs for next year.
Yes, correct. So I gave him a B as well. I agree with you entirely. The difference with him versus someone like last year's Andre Burakovsky was Burakovsky would score in 5 games straight and then not show up for 7-8 games and then does it again. He was outrageously streaky. Someone like Evan Rodriguez, he was solid. He had 16 goals, 23 assists for 39 points. But he had those types of moments again where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we have him. But it wasn't to the extent of you forgot Burakovsky's name, you forgot his image and likeness, all that kind of stuff. But with Ed Rodriguez, he's there. You just wish he did something, So it's like you recognize his presence.
To see him in a full season. He's had a very broken up season, and it is hard to get some momentum.
And early in the season, I was wowed by what he was able to do. Right. So it's like if that guy was to continue that whole thing again, you got another 30+ goal scorer on your hands. And he's probably one of the top guys I want to see back because of he has proven himself. He showed it last year with Pittsburgh. This year, I just want to see more of the sample size, because a 1-year deal can't quite tell everything. It tells enough for maybe the next contract, but not enough to tell the full picture of exactly his ceiling, exactly his style, So he's the one guy I do want to have re-signed for sure.
Honestly, I consider him like the top priority for the older tenured. I mean, beyond the givens, Byram obviously. So Allie's asking, I saw an interview where he was so genuinely just he said he really wants to stay in Colorado, that he loves Colorado. I know they all say that, but you know how sometimes you can tell when
you can just tell.
He seems to genuinely like it, and so I'm really hopeful, and it's I don't know. You always want these guys to love your team. You want your guys to love your guys. So I hope that he means it, and I hope that he stays. Honestly, I would probably, he's one of my favorite players on the Avs this year. I really just fell in love.
Yep. So looking forward to hopefully a longer signing, a 3 or 4 year deal, something around that area would be just fine with me.
And I'm sure the guy would love to have some a decently long contract, stay somewhere.
Sure.
And actually be an integral part of a team, because I don't think that he's really ever had an established role within a team. With the Penguins, he filled in primarily, I think, when he was up with Crosby. So I'm sure he would like that established stay.
Yes, absolutely. All right, next on the docket is a one Bo Byram. What to give Bo Byram? Because here's the thing: 10 goals, 14 assists for 24 points, but he only played effectively half the season.
Right.
I'm going to play the safe route and give him a B, because had he played a whole season, it's a way higher grade. But with the season that he did have, with the amount of games he did have, he performed to a point where I was comfortable. And that's about it, right? Because you had a lot of exactly. He wasn't a liability to the team. He had all kinds of great highlight reels. So with a full season, that would have gone up. But I think for the games played versus what he was able to do, I think a B is a fair grade.
Yeah, and that's what I'm at a B+. I think that especially when you consider if it was a high ankle sprain that he had, the way he played coming back from that, with a season that was continually disrupted. He hardly missed a beat. I mean, honestly, we saw Makar struggle more from injuries than Bo. Bo was pretty consistent throughout the year, and I just, for the love of God, get us a full season of this guy so we can
I
just.
know. I want that so bad.
Oh my God. So he's obviously going to be a priority. I just really hope that he'll take maybe like a little bit longer bridge till we can get into that cap raise, and until he can prove that he can play a full season, because we can't sign someone for 7 years that's never played more than 50 games.
Yeah, we can't have another EJ type, to be honest. And no offense to the guy, but he just had the kind of most unfortunate injuries that
worship Bo. I don't think anybody is dying to get rid of Bo for anything other than the injury issues. And so we just need to get him through a full season and get to that cap raise. And then, guy's going to get paid.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And he's a young gun too, right? So he's got plenty of years ahead of him for this to happen.
Yep.
Okay, next on the docket is Matt Nieto. I'll go first with this guy. I was very excited for him to come back because he was Mr. Ping Pong between us and San Jose. But exactly that. Yeah, he had all this kind of hype and just kind of teetered down. I give him a C. He started great, ended low. I don't know what else to say other than he could have done more.
Yeah, I'm like somewhere stuck at like a D+, C-. I was so happy to see him come back, and honestly, probably had higher expectations than we should have, just because we love him. He does not belong on the second line. That's for darn sure. And he really never got to play. And this is so redundant, but he never got to play on any line with any consistency. When you're constantly being played with lines that you don't belong on, it's not productive for. You would think that you could take a fourth liner and put them on the first line and that would make them better, but it's not. The way line matching in hockey works, and the ability to keep up and process the plays like the first line to the fourth line, it's not good. You want your fourth line playing a fourth line, and that's why there's such distinct lines, and they all have certain ways to play, and some people just can't do it, and that's what he just is. It's not productive for him to move up to the second line at all, and and he just didn't really do much. I mean, just kind of nothing, and it would have been nice to get a little bit of something. So yeah, I'm at like a D+, C-. We didn't expect him to come in and tear it up, but just a little bit more would have been great.
A little bit more effort. Yep, I agree. Okay, next on the docket is JT Compher. A B. That's where I sit with him. He had a lot. He could have done so much more, and he did. I mean, career year. Let's talk about that first. Great. He did great.
Yeah.
But with this being a contract year, my only worry was that he did this to get a higher pay. Now, obviously, I know, his intention versus what I think his intention could be completely different, right? But he had a lot more availability to make greater plays and just couldn't quite get the right passes down or the right receptions from passes down, that kind of stuff. He still did a fantastic job, very, very admirable. But there were just a couple of times where I did notice it was like he also felt very streaky, very Evan Rodriguez-esque, So for that, I say he did a great job, but I give him a great solid B.
Yeah, I was sitting at a B+. And that's I feel like I really struggled between going like for a basic streamlined grading scale and then like a relative to their previous year's grading scale. And for him, it was a career year. It was pretty streaky. But where I knocked him down to a B- is, where was he in the playoffs? Like, where were you? There was times when it was like you would see players and you'd be like, I have not seen Newhook. I haven't heard his name the whole entire game.
Where was anybody not named McKinnon or Rantanen?
Exactly. I didn't even. I thought that. I'm like, is Comfort hurt? Like, where's he been? And it's like he's been on the ice for 45 seconds. So, to me, if you drop the ball in the playoffs, that I'm curious to see how that'll change what he's going to get paid next year.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
that was a huge detractor for me, especially when we needed it more than ever. So.
Yep. It's like had he continued that season that he had and rolled it into the playoffs, or even the last, 10, 15 games of the regular season, that could have also shot up the grade. But it's just kind of, he did just do that disappearing act every now and again.
Yep.
All right, next on the list is a 1, Arturi Lehkonen. We'll have you go first on this one, Britt. What do you give old Arturi?
This one, I just like, he just, I mean, he's always productive. He's always there and he's doing stuff. To me, I was at like, I think I'm just gonna go with the B-. He just really wasn't super effective for any amount of time this year. And then it did come out that he had a broken toe in the playoffs. But I feel like we could have gotten more from him. But these grades are so hard this year when it's like, it's hard to grade people and actually consider their season when it's consistently broke up by injuries. It wasn't an impressive season for me from him. But I don't think that that's going to be something that will continue into next season.
Yeah. Yep. I gave Arturi a B+. Given that he played 64 games and had just about as many points as JT Comfrey, he had 1 point less, 21 goals, 30 assists. My only thing is, if he played a full season, those numbers would have gone up. The reason I gave him the B+, on the B scale, I guess I gave him the plus side of it, is because he happened to have those clutch goals when it came down to crunch time. A lot of them were kind of very, very decisive goals, either led us to a win or within a chance to win. Great highlight plays, like the one I think of is the one that I brought up on one of these episodes of his cool round the back passes to McKinnon, a streaking McKinnon who just went and netted it. So, with the sample size I had versus what he was able to produce, I think a B+ is pretty good for him. But there were also those times where you're just kind of like, again, where you knew he was on the ice, you just wanted him to take a bit more initiative. So I would say B+. All right, next on the docket, Erik Johnson, the Condor. I will go first in this one. He, for me, it's a D for defense. This is kind of where I sit with him. Now, you have to keep in mind, he was kind of just there to be a body on the ice. I mean, he's up there in age. He's cashing out his checks and stuff like that. Everyone's surprised he came back another year. But if you do that, you kind of have to help the team out. I mean, 8 assists, great. That's awesome. But there were times, and again, we're not expecting him to be the goal scorer, but at the same time, there were a lot of times where him and the next guy that we'll talk about made just these really dumb passes on defense that led to these easy goals where Georgiev couldn't do anything about it. So not the best, but at the same time, you love the guy. So, it's a no hard feelings, solid D, but that's
I feel like we could have predicted that he would get a D last year. I wish he would have retired last year, and I'm at a D also. It was definitely a painful year to watch him. A lot of diving, to cover the front of the net because the feet just aren't there, and the guy's given his whole entire body to the abs. And I just really hope that he will either be done after this year or accept like $1 million contract and be open-minded to being that like 7th or 8th.
Yeah, I say get the guy a front office job. I mean, everyone in Denver loves him. He loves it here. I mean, he's a lifelonger,
For sure.
So if he does decide to, kind of like with what you said, if he does decide to stick around and play, it's under $1 million. If he takes a front office job, thank you so much for your service. We hope nothing but the best for you,
For sure.
All right. Now, speaking of the next guy, what's that?
Allie's asking, he's just got 1 year.
Yeah, that his contract is finished by
he's got to resign. So
he's got to resign. All right, next on the docket, when I was talking about the other guy, that other guy happens to be Jack Johnson. 25 games played, so half the season, 2 goals, 2 assists. That's another D, maybe even D-. Like
You think so? I'm going C.
You're going what now?
I'm going C. And I listened to a thing where Bednar was talking about him, and like the thing about Jack Johnson is he's just a safe. He always makes the safe play, so you can.
Yeah.
That pairing is just horrifying. Like if Jack Johnson was with someone that had a little bit better feet, that could make up for that.
Yeah.
But if you watch, he always makes the safe play. He just doesn't do a lot of dumb stuff. So I can see why they value that. So like a C-, kind of exactly what you would expect out of him, and they probably just needed a little bit of like consistent, know what you're getting, not an AHL 14-year-old or 65-year-old, I think that's why we brought him back. But yeah, I think C- for me. Plus, I just love him. I love him so much.
Yeah, I mean the guy was just a treat in the locker room. I mean, for that the guy gets an A+.
Yeah.
But for me, and that's kind of the same reason I give him a D grade is because that's all he did was a safe thing. He didn't try to extend to something that could have been a more beneficial type play, and I'm not saying take risks at every end.
Yeah, no, but he's definitely not progressing the play in ways that we can.
Exactly. He instead of advancing the puck, he throws it off to the side, before they come up into the zone entry. So again, just great to have him. It really was. But just with his age and stuff, you kind of just like, thanks, that's at least in my opinion. So
we'll sign him. I mean, he's like what, 36, 37.
Something. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with him because that could be other money to grab another someone with maybe less age. That's the only thing that I don't know. So I'd love to have him again, but yeah, that's kind of where I sit with him.
Yeah.
Logan O'Connor, next guy on the docket here.
There were 82
games, but I'm going to give him a C, a solid C. The only reason why is luck was never on his side, and I know that's not his fault.
I know, but like you make luck because you
make your own luck a lot of the time. Exactly. So 9 goals, 17 assists. Okay numbers. But there were so many more times that guy could have easily tripled his number of goals had he just had the right stick at the right time, or just those tiny little things.
The guy skates as fast as McKinnon. I swear to God, I cannot tell you how many times I've thought that it was McKinnon skating.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
And it's just maddening how many open nets Logan O'Connor has missed.
I know.
How many short-handed breakaways he's had and not scored on. It's like, for the love of God, you did the hard part.
You did the hard part, exactly. It's like you did 90% of the work. Just finish it,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I put him at a C+. Even though it wasn't a super productive year, it's hard to not weigh the fact that he still did work as hard.
Oh, he put in all the effort.
And it's just sometimes you piece together a good year and sometimes you just don't. And he went, 36 games without a point?
A long time.
Yeah. And it was like he was so snake bitten. There was several games where he missed open nets, big open chances. And it's like the number kept going higher. And we were like counting it for a while. And it's like, oh my God, somebody get this guy a point or he's going to explode. So yeah, I think C+, just because it's not for lack of effort. That's for sure.
Next guy on the docket is Josh Manson.
Yeah, it's a no.
Alrighty, who wants to go first?
I mean, I'm at like a D- on it for the sample size. I suppose I would put it up to a D when you consider the brief 4-game return that we had, that game against Dallas and kicking Jamie Benn. That's enough to bring you up like half for me. But I feel weird saying that I was relieved to hear that he was hurt in the playoffs because it was that kind of liability. I would have a lot of regrets, but he did have surgery already. He's had surgery, so I anticipate next year we will see our good old C+.
The old Josh Manson when we first got him. Yep.
Because it was hard to watch in the playoffs.
It was. I'm in the same boat as you. I give him a D-. Best thing I can say is sorry about your injuries. Better luck next year. So again, because he played 27 games. You can't really fault him for missing most of the season, but at the same time, with the games he did have,
I'm honestly shocked he played 27. I don't remember
Yeah.
he played 27 games.
Yep. Okay. Next on the list is a one Mikko Rantanen.
Oh, well,
I don't think we need to talk much about this. I think
Yeah,
A+ is across the board. Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
he
even carried on.
105 points will do that to you. 55 goals, breaking some records here and there. Yeah, I guess that's an A+.
Literally could not ask more from the guy. So
no, and if he continues that, I am all about it.
Yep.
Next is Val Nichushkin. Now remember, we have to keep in mind this is on ice play, not off ice antics.
But with the ice, it's hard. Same thing. What's the sample size from this year with the injuries? He came back. He was good. He came back.
53 games. Yep. So kind of about half a season-ish. 17 goals, 30 assists for 47 points. B-.
That's
for
exactly
me.
where I'm falling. I mean, I'm not upset with it, but I certainly think that he could outperform that had he had. Because especially because his was so chopped up. 4 games 4 games here, out 6 games, back to 10.
Because it seems like when he got back from his first injury, he just kind of wasn't the same. So his goals came every so often.
Right.
The reason that's still in the B category is because he went off to a hot start at the beginning of the season. Like he had, I swear, 16 of the 17 goals in that first 10 games. So he came off to a white hot start.
Yeah.
Hopefully the situation off ice gets taken care of and nothing bad is coming of this.
I don't know. Apparently they're just not going to talk about it at all.
I guess no one's going to talk about it. So we only know so much, and hopefully it doesn't stain the relationship between him and the Avalanche. We don't know exactly what it is, and that's about the extent of our knowledge.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Cale Makar is next.
That's a toughie, man.
This one, and again, I have a very high bar for him because Conn Smythe winner, B+, based off my standards for him. He had a very good season, 17 goals, 49 assists for 66 points, but he played 60 games, so not a full season.
Right.
But a lot of the times you're just kind of questioning a lot of the stuff he did on the ice. He wasn't himself like he was last season.
Right.
But he still was very, very good, you know? So
I think that something that really frustrated me is every time he was injured, when he came back, it takes him. He just really takes a couple of days to integrate back every single time.
Yep.
And Allie is asking about if he should be considered for the Norris with the games he missed. And I just, I thought I really did not think that he would be considered for the Norris. I am pleasantly surprised.
I am quite surprised that he was a Norris candidate, to be honest.
But that's just the fact that everybody knows that he is the best defenseman in the world. And also, I don't think that unless you have such a small sample size, like under 40 games, maybe might be the mental draw, but it's not the Iron Man award. Yeah. So I feel like if you can weigh what they did
in those 60 games that he played, exactly.
And that's what I just I think it's really dumb. I think the Carlson, this is a defensive award. Make a best defensive defenseman and make a best I don't know.
She's a homer. What can I say?
Okay, so you're mad that he got it. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is what I was telling Allie. I said with the 3, it's Allie's D-man, my D-man, and Erik Karlsson who's going to win the Norris,
Yeah, I just don't, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, you're not here, because he's negative 95, which I know that plus minus is not the all, but just play forward, bro.
Yeah.
If you're a liability on defense, I don't think that you should be winning that, even if you are a fantastic.
Yeah. But I believe the Sharks D-man, in my opinion, gets that Norris trophy because, 100 and some odd points.
Absolutely.
They're going to look at that and say, yeah, we're not going to look at any other criteria. That's over 100 points. We're giving you the Norris.
That's the beauty of playing for an absolutely horrific team is you just play how you want to freaking play. And if you're scoring goals, nobody gives a shit how it happens.
That's exactly right. All right, so after Cale Makar, we have a 1 Nathan MacKinnon. Guy was great. A+. I mean, same thing with Mikko. He was kind of one of the 2 guys that carried the team in the postseason. So because of that, you bump him up from an A to an A+. And I mean, 111 points.
When you consider that
goals.
playoff performance, like I don't give a shit if he,
yeah,
his little slumps, and it doesn't matter. Like when you are a playoff performer like that, he can literally sit on the bench and play tic-tac-toe with himself on the whiteboard. And I don't,
Exactly. You're exactly right.
I truly think he is a playoff performer in all of the NHL.
He really is. And I am beyond thrilled that he got a Stanley Cup, especially with the Avalanche, because it was getting to a point, because I began to get really worried with him when he said, I've been here for so many years and I haven't won.
Here for 5 years and I have to show for it.
And that's where I was like, well, we better win a cup soon to keep him happy. But yeah, A+ for the guy. Love having Nate Dogg on the team. Great player. Yeah. Last of the skaters is Devon Taves. 7 goals, 43 assists for 50 points.
I'm stuck between a C+ and a B-.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yep.
Yeah, and it just didn't feel like the Devon Taves.
Yeah.
And the defense was ran through the ringer relentlessly, but there were some turnovers and decisions and just some stuff that just was astounding from honestly both Makar and Taves, things that we never would have even thought they were capable of doing. I don't think that it's something that's going to carry into next year.
It's just one of those years.
Yeah. Yep. And his wife had a baby like right around Christmas. So no sleep to be had there. But yeah, I just it wasn't a great year. It wasn't an awful year, but you have to consider when relative to what you expect out of them, what you've seen out of them.
Exactly. I'm in the B+ range just because he had the highest plus-minus on the team, which means he helped with more goals than anybody effectively, right? So I would say because of his assist and production and stuff like that, I move him into the B- category. But I totally agree with you where it just seemed like he had a very off year when it came to his offensive production, because I believe last year he had like 20 some odd goals, so not characteristic of him or Makar for that matter. And I don't think it'll carry over to the next season. Okay, we got just a couple more people here, and we never want to forget our goalies. So let's start with Pavel Francouz. Not a lot of games played because there was an injury, but I just kind of want to get your take.
I don't know. I mean, I've gone up and down and up and down, and I guess I'm just at a C+, and that's weighing the injuries. At some point we gotta see a season, and that's what
full season. Yep.
We talk about him having any bit of trade value, and I just don't know. I go back and forth. Who would want to touch that? A goalie that's probably paid for sitting way more than playing. And he wasn't phenomenal when he did play. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not like there's a huge justification there. I guess I'm a C for what he did play. He had some decent games. He had some stinkers too. So I just it's really hard to put any kind of gauge on it.
Yep. 16 games played. He split the difference. I would say C+ because exactly what he's capable of. If it wasn't for Grubauer and stuff like that, the starting job is his. He's right there. That he's probably one of the best backups you can have on the ice. But because he can't play a full season and just stuff doesn't go his way,
can't handle it. And I don't know.
That's just it.
He had surgery also, so I don't know if it's those hips failing.
Exactly. So yeah, C+ for Francouz. Hopefully he's able to play a full season, because look what he did last season when he was able to play a full season effectively. He played half the playoffs. He won you the Western Conference Finals, so he's a great player. He's fantastic. It's just his body just can't take a lot of this stuff, which is pretty sad to say.
Yeah.
Next one, we'll go ahead and just quickly throw in Jonas Johansson. before we get to the last guy. Jonas did very surprising. So my curve for him is a little bit lighter, so I'll give him a C+ as well, because he had, in my opinion, what should be the save of the year. But then again, it seems like as soon as that happened, every other goalie in the league said, "Oh yeah, I got one better."
I know. And so then Jonas said, "Screw you guys, I'm going home."
going across the sea. So yep.
Poor guy.
So quickly, just want to say C+ to him. He did an admirable job for what was required of him.
Yeah, he's a C+ for me too, especially when you consider the ups and downs that he's had for the last 2 years. The fact that he's kept the ability to play in the NHL, that's really impressive. And he's always been serviceable for the Avs for literally the last 4 years, because we had him in against Dallas in the bubble. When we were all the way down to Hutchison. Was it Jojo, Hutchison?
I believe that was your tandem.
Yep.
That was
what a time to be alive.
He was the guy. Yep. Okay, and the very last one, and certainly not the most least, is a one Alexander Georgiev. Britt, why don't you go first?
So I'll just preface this by saying, if you want to talk crap about goalies and you want to fight, you could just PM me. I'm down to argue for all day long. It's a hill that I'm going to die on. Like, I truly am going to die on it. I give him a B+. When you consider it was a very large uncertainty. He's never been a starting goalie, and he finished essentially top 3 goalies within the NHL. With all stats considered, he was the most consistent, one of the most consistent players on our team. And when you look at the games that he played poorly generally correlated directly with when the team was playing poorly. But he played very well. And when you consider that with the goalies, the stabilization takes longer. It takes longer to transition as a goalie. And next year, I anticipate that the only thing I felt like we lacked this year was more of those absolutely stealing the games, especially in the playoffs. So I pray that next year we'll move into those and just build upon it. But I'm straight up B+, especially with him going full time. It's harder on the body. It's a lot for a goalie. The guy played 62 games. That's a lot for a goalie these days. I believe he is tied in the top 3. I think there's 3 that were tied for the most games, something like that. But so that's these statistics are coming from a very large sample size. So these are very stable statistics that give a true representation of him. And he is an elite goaltender. He is within the top 5 goaltenders. And I just feel like he's going to get better. And that's goalies mature well through their first few years with the team, especially when you consider the team that he had in front of him at the beginning of the year. It's disgusting that we were able to win anything in this league with a half AHL team.
Yep, I agree. I give a one Alexander Georgiev an A because of that exact same reason. The sample size, he played 62 games. He won 40 of them.
Yeah.
Olmark also won 40, but you know how many games he played? 49.
Yep.
So, yeah, for his win percentage, it sure shoots up, but he didn't play nearly as many games as Georgiev, right? For a first-year starting goaltender, I should say, he blew the doors off my expectations, you know, and I'm kind of in the same boat where if you wanted to bench him, you wanted to trade him, get rid of him, I don't know what in the world you were seeing, because he played fantastic.
We're looking at you, Bill.
The only thing that kept me from an A+ was because he did when he did have those stinkers, they hurt really bad, you know, and you know, it wasn't as often or anything like that, but they were just kind of like, okay, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what you could have made a better.
They generally weren't all his fault.
Exactly.
And it's funny because everybody's like, why does he let in everything from the point throughout the beginning of the season, and then the playoffs come? What's this reoccurring theme that we keep hearing? Vasilevsky lets in everything from the point, and Omar lets in everything from the point. And there's something with these NHL goalies genuinely struggle from distance shots more than everything else. And so it's I don't know why it's suddenly this reoccurring theme this year, but I'm sure Lalonde calling it out definitely brought it to the forefront. But Vasilevsky, his biggest struggle is those distance shots. So it's not like Georgie is some bizarre weirdo who just can't see from 20 feet away. So
tied for second as far as shutouts went. He was the reason you still had a chance in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, he let in goals, but guess what? Goalies will do that, you know?
After that Rangers shutout or that Rangers shootout, I was sold. When you saw that clutch, he's got that. And
he has the clutch. Yep. So for second year, I have the same expectations for him. The only reason that those 16 losses came is probably because of the team in front of him, more than anything, you know? So he's solid. He is solid. I have no complaints, no issues with him. We'll hope that next year he performs just as admirably and we have an even better team in front of us and we see where it takes us.
One of the main things is we saw him get scored on early in games and continually lock it down. He doesn't get locked in his head. He's not a Binnington. He's not one of those mentally weak goalies who gets rattled. He always was able to progressively get better throughout the game for the most part. I mean, that's a very impressive trait for a goalie.
Exactly. Yep. So that wraps up the season grades. We'll see if we can piece these together and put them online or anything like that. But those are our expectations. If you have any changes of what you thought from ours, be sure to just let us know. But I think honestly, for what it's worth, not a lot of absolute failures, you know. So I think it's just a little bit of improvement for some of the players that we wish would have done better, but again, next year, it's a whole new year. You don't know what's going to happen yet. So we'll have to see what happens when we have a full new assembled team at the beginning of next season, but that's months away. So we won't even have to worry about it. So I believe that'll take care of everything, Britt, as far as what we had. We know this episode went quite a bit longer than expected, but we just had a lot of feelings.
So I got to get out of here and go eat them, or I'm going to die if I have to keep snow.
You're good. You're good. So thank you once again, everybody, for following the Cluster Puck podcast. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. There's a bunch of other shows that have been on the network and are new to the network. We really highly recommend checking all of them out. Love every single one of their shows. They do a great job. If you want to follow us specifically, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter and Instagram and the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook. So if there's nothing else, Britt, I believe we'll go ahead and sign off and see you guys next week. And as always, friends, go Avs go.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.